about this Atlanta Hawks team that really draws me in. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Maybe it's the way that they play tenacious, swarming defense. Their defensive turnaround has been really absurd this year. The last time the Hawks had a defense inside the top 10 in defensive rating, that was 2016-17. That's a long time ago. And they have a top 10 defense over the last 2 weeks or so, and it's no accident. The Hawks have built their recent success off of this defense. They beat the Knicks in the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup and barely lost to the Bucks in the semis of the NBA Cup, and that run was forged mostly on their defense. The Hawks play a rangy, aggressive style of defense that's built around their incredibly good perimeter defenders. Of course, there's Dyson Daniels and his historic steal numbers, but Jalen Johnson's a phenomenal perimeter defender as well with his size and length and instincts, and they just have a bunch of big players to play. And this tried and true formula of Trae Young and a bunch of big wings who can kind of do stuff. DeAndre Hunter's been scoring really well lately. Even Vic Krejci can play a little bit, and I definitely enjoy his game. But Daniels really is the linchpin and the fulcrum of everything that defense does. His ability to not only be one of the best on-ball defenders, we see him shut down everyone from Brunson to Shea. Like, he is an unbelievable on-ball defender, and also an incredible off-ball defender. The Hawks force a ton of turnovers because they play fast and force the issue on defense. Instead of just methodically beating the Hawks in the half court with their offense like the Knicks do, the Hawks tried to jump passing lanes. They showed bodies at Brunson in early offense and really forced the ball to guys like Josh Hart, who led the team in scoring in that game. That was not by accident. And this Hawks foundation that they're building, really interesting. Of course, you have this talent, and I was thinking about it. Who are the best teammates that Trae Young has ever played with? You have probably Clint Capella back in his prime, 2020, 2021, maybe Gallo or John Collins when they were at their best, or I don't even know. Kevin Huerter had some really good years in Atlanta, but Jalen Johnson, a lot of people reasonably think he could be an all-star this year, might already be the best teammate Trae's ever played with, and certainly has the ceiling to be. And though Daniels is still a pretty harmful offensive player at the moment, he certainly has the ceiling of another really high-level impact player next to Trae Young. The offense with this build is very interesting to me because, of course, you have Trae Young as this transformational offensive engine. Even though he's not scoring well this year, his impact is clear with the way he's able to create advantages, get to the middle of the floor literally whenever he wants. His pick and roll game is absolutely sublime. And it feels like the Hawks never take a bad shot with Trae Young on the floor unless it's Trae Young himself taking a somewhat ill-advised shot overall. But yeah, Trae just creates so many good looks, but the Hawks aren't really hitting them at this point. I think a lot of the strengths and the weaknesses of the young players came on display against the Bucks, where Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson were flying around and wrecking on defense, and Dyson especially had some moments in that first half where he really struggled on the offensive end. Not a very good shooter, shooting under 30% from three, and he's not that great of a ball handler. But he got his stride in the second half, working off of the catch and hitting a few shots, and the Hawks really like to use Dyson as a screener. Him as a screener really maximizes his strengths. I talked about guard screening and the value that brings on the channel. Dyson really is quick reading the floor with the ball in his hands. It feels like he's watching the action in slow motion before it actually unfolds, and when he doesn't have to dribble, handle pressure, Dyson can really pick the defense apart with his passing and his great floater touch. He had a crazy circus deep floater in that game. I think his development on offense is going to be really pivotal because in big games and big series, defenses will play off of him. That's what they had the Bucks doing. I believe Giannis was roaming off of Daniels throughout the end of that game, and of course Giannis showed up on defense in a big way. And going forward, the Hawks just need to add more creation talent next to Young, right? Bogdan Bogdanovic has been pretty reliable in the past, but is not having his best year on the offensive end. Johnson even has his limitations as a creator, has been a lot better this year, but still some limitations without a ball screen, especially given his stiffness and lack of a kind of dynamic, shifty handle, but his size and speed and touch are all really phenomenal when he can get downhill, and of course he's an incredible pick and roll passer. Quinn Snyder, the Quinn Snyder of it all, is very important to me too. I feel like people kind of forgot how good of a coach he is after his Utah tenure, where yes, he had Rudy Gobert, but Snyder's defenses were always at the top of the league, and I think he's done a really good job building a great Hawks defense without top tier talent throughout the roster. So many of the best defenses in the league, you see the Thunder, the Rockets, for the most part, are playing fine to good defenders at worst at all positions. But the Hawks, Trae Young, I think, has improved a lot on defense over the last couple years. He's not the horrific defender he once was, but he's always going to have limitations. Clint Capella is not that athletic anymore. Bogdan Bogdanovic, especially off the ball, isn't a great defender, and Onyeka Okongwu is also a pretty poor defender as well. But Snyder has done an excellent job building a scheme that relies on its excellent perimeter defenders to cover ground and to erase mistakes that he knows his teams are going to make. And because the Hawks force offense to less talented shooters, sometimes you can get away with those mistakes more than you could otherwise. I really appreciate Snyder's willingness to evolve his philosophy, given that he ran some more conservative, deep drop type defenses because he had Rudy Gobert in Utah. And now he's running a defense where they were switching Clint Capella onto Jalen Brunson in the Knicks game, and they show and trap and blitz and mix their coverages up, and I'm really encouraged. This Hawks team is still certainly a piece or two away. I really like how Risa has played, to be honest, this year. I still think that was not the best move overall as a number one pick. Look at how Donovan Clingan's playing, man. He would be so good for them. Anyways, Risa has had a very nice season. The shots aren't going in, but he knows how to play, and he's a menace on the defensive end. But the Hawks, they're doing all of this without an anchor, without a real shot blocker in the middle. Daniels and Johnson are both excellent paint protectors for wings and guards, but they're ultimately not centers and spend a lot of their time outside of the paint. Capella is not explosive anymore, even though he's well positioned, and Onyeka is just not tall enough to really make up for his other athletic tools. Once the Hawks can get a legit center, whether that's someone in free agency, via a trade, or the draft, maybe they get someone like Big Rocco Zikarsky, or I don't know, I'm just thinking of big, tall guys, maybe someone who can play that Snyder drop, they trade for a Walker Kessler. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I am very in on the Hawks for the long term. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. Absolutely, they're competitive. The East is horrible, and they're one of the better teams in the East already. We saw on this NBA Cup performance, but the Hawks, yeah, they're just really, really good, man. And I love this foundation for what they're building going forward with Trae Young. Trae is a player I believe in a lot. I think we saw, right? He can make it to a conference finals and compete if there's good fortune. And every great finals team, even the best ones, benefit from some good fortune. So all it takes is Trae and a bunch of tall, rangy wings. Remember that 2021 series where they beat the Sixers? They would run Gallinari and Collins and Capella and just all of those tall-ass players covering ground for Trae. And I think despite Trae's shooting issues, he's better than he was then in a lot of ways. We talked about the defensive improvement, and he's more bought in playing off the ball with Quinn Snyder. They'll run some cuts and different sets for him, and I think that shows a lot in his willingness to grow and adapt. Obvious to say this Hawks team is not a championship winning team. They need more offensive star power if they are going to get there. Got to find a real reliable secondary bucket getter creator next to Trae Young. But most teams do not have their primary initiator in place, and most teams don't have the slew of defensive talent and the excellent coaching that the Atlanta Hawks have. So I'm very high on them going forward. Really excited to watch them. I'm trying out a new format. Let me know if you like this or you hate this. YouTube keeps copywriting all of my videos, which is a problem. So I'm trying something that I know is not going to get copyrighted. On our way to 10K. Love you all. Hope you're having an excellent day or night or whenever you're watching this.